With executive communication, one of the biggest things that we are doing is we are shifting from sharing information to creating a meaningful experience for our audience. Selling is something that's always happening. Selling is showing our audience our perspective. It's compelling our audience to be interested and excited. And it's something that we have to learn to do in a corporate setting if we want to achieve big impact and if we want to be seen as leaders.
Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jess. I am a New York Times featured podcast host. I used to have a career in the corporate space. I'm now a coach for women, and I am really here to help you build confidence, find your voice in your corporate career, and elevate into leadership roles. And in today's episode, we are talking about possibly one of the most important things that will help you propel your career forward. And that is the art of executive communication. Executive communication is your ability to speak to executives in a way that is crisp, compelling, and persuasive. When you learn to do this well, it has such a powerful impact on your career path. And I credit my own executive communication skills with really helping me reach that coveted executive level status very, very quickly in my corporate career. I watched the people around me and I watched what the successful people in my work environment were doing when they were communicating with executives. And I soaked it in like a sponge, and I would tweak and adjust the way that I would share information with my audience, especially when my audience were senior leaders and people high up in the organization. And what I found is that the more I did this and the better I got at this, the more executives became very interested and invested in my work, and the more this benefited my professional development and my path to promotion, because I had a lot of executive sponsors at the companies that I worked in, people who knew me, knew my work well, liked me, supported me in growing into bigger roles. And it all started with my ability to speak about my work in a way that was so compelling that they wanted to lean into what I was doing deeper. And that tight working relationship really helped me grow, like I mentioned. And I want you to have the same experience. I want you to be able to speak about your work in a way that is so powerful that leaders around you really take an interest. They take notice. They get excited, because once that starts to happen, you build this unstoppable momentum, not just in the work that you're doing and not just in the implementation, but also in your own career path. So your work gets better because you have high-level executives bought in, and your career path escalates more quickly because you're developing those tight-knit relationships with people in your company who hold an enormous amount of influence and who can really help you grow in your career. And so that's what we're going to be sharing today. And today I'm going to debunk a myth about executive communication, because I think a lot of people actually get this wrong. And a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking that good executive communication is about sounding smart and sophisticated and being super charismatic. And while it can feel like so true and so real that that is what you're trying to do, that's actually not what is most effective. And in today's episode, I'm going to explain why. And I'm going to tell you what you want to do instead to ensure that your verbal communication is super impressive and is really working for you as you are trying to further your professional reputation and your career. Before we dive in, I have a couple really fun announcements. Announcement number one is that for a temporary time, just a short, limited amount of time, I am releasing one of my most popular ever audio trainings. It is called 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence. This training is for you if you are wanting to get out of patterns of overthinking and doubting yourself and therefore keeping quiet in meeting rooms. And if you are wanting to become more brave, more vocal, you want to speak up more, you want to be a thought leader in the room, but you also want to sound polished and articulate and genuinely confident when you speak up. If that is a transformation that you are interested in, this training was created for you. It walks you through the 3 core skills that you will want to build that are going to help you make that your reality. Like I mentioned, this training is only available for a limited time. You can grab it by clicking the link in the show notes or heading over to jessguzikcoaching.com/free resources, and I will send it straight to your inbox. The second announcement is that we are getting really close to enrollment for the upcoming March cohort of the Art of Speaking Up Academy. Starting March 13th, you will be able to enroll in the cohort. And if you are hearing about this program for the very first time, it is a 6-month professional development program. It is a small group program that I teach live every single week. So it's a really cool experience. You get to be with me and your cohort in the space every week. And I created it for women who want to elevate their verbal communication and who really want to communicate in a way that is not just polished and not just persuasive, but also very authentically confident. I want you to be able to not just be crisp and effective in your communication, but I want you to feel really, really strong inside so that you exude confidence and leadership on the outside when you are communicating in your day-to-day job and in work meetings. And in the Art of Speaking Up Academy, I walk you through a curriculum that covers both the inner work that you need to do to strengthen your mindset and feel more confident. And it also covers the very practical tools of executive communication so that when you are in work conversations and meetings, you have the tools and skills you need to be clear, to be concise, to be persuasive, to be assertive, and even to navigate difficult conversations, disagreements, and difficult stakeholders. If you are ready to grow your confidence and learn those foundations of clear, crisp, assertive communication, I want to invite you to join me in the next cohort. Mark your calendar. March 13th is when enrollment will open. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss it, you can add yourself to the Academy waitlist. This ensures that you will get an invitation in your email inbox as soon as I open doors. And I will link the waitlist in the show notes so that you can add yourself. And with that, I'm going to talk more about executive communication because it's at the center of the work that I do. And I'm really excited today to help you see why you don't need to be super charismatic or share information in a super sophisticated, fancy way in order to truly wow and dazzle an executive audience. You might even be thinking now, like, I could never dazzle an executive audience. I could never wow them. I just don't have that in me. And I want to explain to you in this episode why anyone can have it in them, why you don't need to be special, why you don't need to feel like you're naturally extroverted in order to be really effective. Because here's the thing that I'm going to be hammering home in this episode. Good communication is much more about your audience than it is about you. When you know how to make your audience feel excited, they will be impressed. They will be wowed. They will be dazzled. And the wonderful thing about humans is that what excites us most is our own success. So your audience, in their minds, they're not thinking, wow, I hope she's super sophisticated. I hope she sounds really perfect. And I hope that her stuff is really smart sounding. What your audience is thinking is she going to make me look good? Is her work going to help me? Is it going to lead to some sort of positive result for me? And in order for you to really impress them, all you have to do is help them see that the answer to those questions is yes, to help them see that your work is beneficial to them. And that's something that anyone can learn to do. It doesn't require a special skill. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to develop it. And we're going to start with an analogy because this is such a powerful way to illustrate the difference between communication that isn't compelling enough to really hook in executives versus communication that is. So here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that you really want to see the Hamilton musical. and you've been itching to see it and it's really hard to get tickets. And your friend says, oh, I got tickets and we're going to go. And I got this as your birthday present and we're going to go see Hamilton. And you're so excited. You've been wanting to see this play forever. Everyone's talking about it. And you get into the theater and you sit down in your seats and it's time for the play to start. And the curtains finally open. And I want you to imagine one person comes out onto the stage and there's a spotlight on them. And instead of the musical play starting the way that you expected it to, the person who came out on the stage gives a synopsis of the play. And they get in front of the microphone on the stage and they say, welcome to the theater. Thank you so much for coming to see Hamilton. Today, I'm going to walk you through in detail everything that happens in the Hamilton play. The Hamilton play is about Alexander Hamilton and how he shaped America as we have come to know it. And the play begins with blah, 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 blah. And I want you to imagine that this person gives a detailed synopsis of everything that happens in the musical. They talk about the plot points, they discuss each song, and then when they finally get to the end of the synopsis, the curtain goes back down and the play is over. And you sit there looking at your friend in awe and you're thinking, what just happened? What just happened there? We came to see this play. We had someone come out on the stage and give a synopsis. And now they're telling us that the play is over and we have to leave the theater. So, okay. The reason that I share this example with you is because in this example, it is so easy to see that delivering information to an audience is not the same as giving your audience an experience that engages them on a deeper level. Because if you go to this theater, right, and you hear this person giving this synopsis of Hamilton, you theoretically know everything about what happened in the play. They told you all of the plot points and they talked about all the songs and they described everything in detail. So you could leave that theater with a full intellectual understanding of everything that happens in that play. And yet that is nowhere near the same as leaving the theater having seen the play. That's a completely different experience. That's an experience that you're going to get way more excited about. It's going to engage you emotionally. You're going to rave to your friends about it. And so what this shows us then is that receiving information is not the same as having an experience that engages us and that moves us. And the reason why this is so important is because at the heart of executive communication is your ability to move and inspire an executive audience. And what I think about, and the way that I think about this, is when we're speaking at an individual contributor level and at that level of sophistication, we tend to focus on just getting the information to our audience. So we tend to treat it more like the person getting up on stage giving the synopsis of Hamilton. But when we move into leadership, we have an expanded set of responsibilities, whether we're moving into a leadership role or whether you're trying to show your company that you're ready for a leadership role. Either way, the point there is that as leaders, you have a responsibility that goes beyond just conveying the information to your audience. Just like in that Hamilton play, the people putting on the play have a responsibility to actually do a play, not just tell you about the plot of the play. Similarly, as a leader, you have an obligation to lead. This means that you need to engage people emotionally and compel people and move people. And the problem is that when you're just sharing pure information, just kind of giving a synopsis of what happens in the play, it doesn't land with people in that really powerful way. They leave your meeting, and a lot of what was shared and discussed is out of their minds very quickly as they move on to the next thing. Just like with a play, if you don't see the actual play and you just hear a synopsis, you're not going to remember it as much. You're not going to feel as excited about it. You're not going to recommend it to your friends. So similarly, you don't want your executive audience to leave a conversation with you without having been engaged emotionally, without having felt led or inspired by you, because then it's not going to be memorable for them. They're not going to be excited about it. They're not going to rave about it to their friends. And so with executive communication, one of the biggest things that we are doing is we are shifting from sharing information to creating a meaningful experience for our audience. And I think the reason this can feel really tricky is because a lot of us think, well, I work in a corporate environment and, in corporate, we're not supposed to show emotions. We're supposed to be very logical. So why do I have to create this emotional experience for my audience? But in the end of the day, what is going to get you results in your career is knowing how to get people compelled and excited. No matter how clinical or how intellectual your work environment is, I have never, ever met an executive that didn't have a strong response to communication that was framed in a way that showed them how my work was going to help them win. So what you want to be doing is you want to be moving from just sharing information to speaking to executives in a way where you are showing them how the work that you do is helping you and your team and them and your company win. You want to shift from just sharing the information to really packaging it up in a compelling way that engages them emotionally. This is going to be the difference maker in terms of their experience as the audience. And they're going to experience you more like a musical play and less like a person coming out on stage reading a synopsis. Here's a really common experience that I see with my clients, and this is a signal to me that they haven't yet built that skill. And this is an advanced skill. So I'm not saying this to shame or judge anyone, but this is a sign to me that they haven't yet built the skill of moving from that individual contributor style of sharing information, which is very synopsis-like and very transactional, to more of an engaging, compelling, experiential way of sharing information with an audience. One of the biggest signs of this is when you are working hard and for some reason that work isn't being recognized and you feel like you're not getting the same credit that other people are getting. Now, there's different reasons that can cause that. So there's different diagnoses that can be behind that. However, one really big one, and one that people don't realize, is that you might be speaking about your work like a synopsis of a play. So let's say that you have completed a project and you're going to share it with a room full of people and there's leaders in the room. If you share it synopsis style, where you're just dumping the information, it's going to be more forgettable. It's not going to stick in people's minds. Whereas if they get the experience of the play and you're engaging their emotions, they feel compelled, they feel inspired by it, then just like someone leaving the Hamilton Theater is going to be like, oh my gosh, that was so good. That play was amazing. Everyone should see it. They're going to have similar feelings and impulses after they exit their interaction with you. So it's not just the work that you're doing, and it's not even you sharing the work that you're doing. It's how you're sharing the work that you're doing. And in the how, that is where you switch from the individual contributor synopsis style of sharing information to a more engaging, compelling, I'm doing the full musical for you style of sharing information. Now, there are two ways that you do this, and there are two important things that you want to be paying attention to in order to help you get better at making this shift, because you're probably wondering, okay, how do I do this? How do I pivot away from giving a synopsis to actually doing a full musical for my audience? And I want to show you what that bridge is. So there are really two things that are going to help you make that shift. The first is you have to frame your communication in a way that gets your audience excited. So it is your job to get them excited about your work. And this is both a tactical thing that you need to change, but there's also a mindset component to this as well. So very tactically, let's start with that because that's a little bit more straightforward. Let's say you are working on, like a recruiting plan and you're sharing it with leaders. You have to remember that while you might care about the recruiting plan, the leaders aren't thinking about the recruiting plan. They're thinking a couple steps above the recruiting plan. They're thinking about, what is that recruiting plan doing for the business? How is that fitting into my strategic priorities? How is that helping me move towards the KPIs and the goals that matter most? So very, very tactically, from a very tactical level, when you're sharing things with them, you need to be making that link for them. You don't want to just jump into, okay, everyone, I'm going to update you on our recruiting plan. You want to start where their head is at. You want to start with what's exciting to them. You want to start with, I know that we've been working as a company to solidify X, Y, and Z strategic pillars. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this recruiting plan with you today because it's going to help us get there. Boom. When you do that, now they see how important it is. They remember why you're working on this. They know why it matters. They're emotionally engaged. So that's kind of the tactical side of this, which is you frame your information, you frame your communication based on what is most compelling to your audience, not based on the actual nitty-gritty topic. Because in general, when you're speaking to executives, you are always going to be more interested in the nitty-gritty than they are because they're thinking 1 or 2 levels above. So you have to go 1 or 2 levels above to meet them where they are. Then they will come with you into the nitty-gritty details. And this is a huge thing that I see come up with people. A lot of my clients will say, I don't know how to calibrate my level of detail for an executive audience. This is a clue to me that this area is an area that that person will really benefit from learning, because when you meet your audience, your executive audience, 1 or 2 levels above, and you frame your work based on what they care about, they will have a higher tolerance for details. So typically, if your audience is not responding well to your stuff because it's too detailed, it's not always that you have to take out detail. That might be the answer, but the answer might also be that you didn't sufficiently convince them of how important it is. And so they mentally checked out a little bit. And so they don't have the mental stamina to go into the details with you. Because when we care about something and we understand why it's important, we will get into those details. We will dive all the way in. And I've shared quite detailed things with executives, and it's gone well because I've taken them on a journey and showed them why these details even matter in the first place. So very tactically, this is how you get your audience excited and inspired about your work. But here's the mindset piece to it that is really challenging. And oh my gosh, when you get better at this, you become so powerful. It's so fun. But the thing is, I think a lot of us, I know so many of my clients experience this. I really struggled and had my own journey with this in my corporate career. But a lot of us feel kind of scared and vulnerable and insecure about the work that we're doing. We're not sure if it's good. Like, we question it, right? We don't know if we fully think it's good, if we fully stand behind it. And a lot of us do something that's really, really dangerous to do if you're trying to establish a reputation as a leader, which is we put our work in front of our audience and we wait for our audience to tell us that they think it's good. And then if our audience responds positively to what we're sharing, then all of a sudden we perk up and we feel super confident about it because we got that positive feedback from them. And what's missing here is you coming in with the leadership and you leading with already believing that your stuff is good so that your audience can follow that vibe and so that they can feel like it's good and strong too. In other words, you don't want to put the burden on your audience to have to bring the belief and the excitement around the work you do. You have to bring that. You have to go first. You have to share it and talk about it like you think it's good. When you do that, you will more often also get your audience to think it's good. This, in the Hamilton musical analogy, would be as if the actors and performers in the musical came on the stage and they were like, oh, I don't know if I'm a good Broadway performer. I don't know if I'm good at singing. I don't know if I'm good at acting. So I'm going to kind of give it like a half effort. And if the audience likes it, then I'm going to have a big stage presence. And then I'm going to be really strong and powerful. And if that happened, if the performers went out on stage and gave it like a half effort, that wouldn't go over well because the audience isn't going to respond to half-baked effort. The audience is going to respond to a full energy. So you want to think about it the same way when it comes to you inspiring your executive audience. You want to come out with the confidence, with the knowledge and the knowing that your work is good, with that strong energy. Then they will respond positively to that the majority of the time, and that will help you grow that energy even further. But if you are waiting for other people to tell you that your work is good, it is really hard for you to wow your audience and make that positive impression. And I know how vulnerable this is. I know how scary it is to go in front of leaders, to go in front of your boss, to go in front of someone high up at your company and talk about work like you think it's good before you have any idea what they think about it. It is terrifying. It is scary. It requires so much guts and so much courage. But the flip side is you become so effective when you develop that level of confidence, when you are willing to go first, you are willing to stand behind it. And that's when people start to see you more as a leader. That's one of those things that fixes that problem of I'm working really hard, but I'm not getting the credit for it, right? Because think about it. If you're trying to show your company or leaders at your company that you have what it takes to take on more, you have to show them that you have that strong energy to go into a conversation, to go into a room, and to stand by what you are sharing, and for you to bring the belief of why it's good. They need to see that confidence from you so that they know that you will feel confident taking on a broader, bigger scope in a future leadership role. So that is the mindset piece when it comes to framing your information in a way that's compelling to executives. So there's the tactical piece where you want to speak about your work based on what is important to them. And you always want to make sure that you're explaining how it relates to what's important to them before you're diving into details, before you're getting into the weeds, because what they're thinking about is their own stuff and their own goals. And so if you all of a sudden put something in front of them without that context, it's going to be really hard to compel and persuade them. So that, everything I just shared, that was the first ingredient of how you shift from the individual contributor style of sharing information to more of a leadership and visionary way of speaking to executives. But the other piece that I want to share, and it's a slight variation on what we've been talking about, but it's really, really, really important. In fact, this is so important that I just added a new lesson on this to the Art of Speaking Up Academy, because I realized that so many people are missing the opportunity to do this. And I realized that this is something that I want to teach and support my clients with. But what's so important is that there are different ways to talk about our work. And we can talk about it in a very simple, cut and dry transactional way. Or we can talk about it in a way where we're really standing behind the quality of our work and highlighting all of the talents, creativity, grit, resourcefulness, and problem solving that we have brought into the process of making that work come to fruition. So, for example, let's go back to the example of the recruiting plan. I can share a recruiting plan with my executive audience, and I can show them this perfect plan that I came up with. Now, they might see it and they might think, okay, great. She worked on a recruiting plan. She got done what we asked her to do. And so then the question becomes, if they saw that you created the deliverable and they saw that you did what they asked, why are they still telling you that you're not showing enough leadership? Why are they still telling you that they need to see more from you? Well, here's one reason why. You might show them the recruiting plan, but there might be a lot of things that you're not showing them, right? Maybe you're not showing them how many different obstacles came up while you were building that recruiting plan and how you overcame those obstacles. Maybe you're not showing them all the years of experience you have building plans like that at other companies and how you took that experience and incorporated it into this recruiting plan. Maybe you're not showing them all of the other ways this could have been done and why you found one way that is going to be much better for your company. As you are executing your work, you probably don't realize the brilliance that you are putting into it because it's your skill set, you're used to doing it, it feels just like your day-to-day job. And so you might be forgetting to highlight this for your audience. You might be forgetting to take them deeper into all of the value and all of the ways that you have leveraged your knowledge, your skill set, your creativity to get to the deliverable that you are sharing with them. And I know it can be scary to share something with executives and talk about the positive, impressive things that we did to get to that deliverable. But if we don't incorporate that into our talking points, they're not going to know. They're not going to understand what went into creating that. They are not going to have those moments where they're thinking, oh, wow, she has so many years of experience. I'm glad that she incorporated that into this. Oh, wow, she solved all of these things so we don't have to worry about it. Oh, wow, she came up with this innovative new way of doing it. So now we're going to get better results for the company. They're not going to know any of that if you just show them the deliverable. They're not going to connect those dots. So you really have to do that for them. It's the same as the analogy with the play, right? Like I can tell you everything that happens in Hamilton, but it's never going to be the same as you hearing the songs, right? So you can share with them the deliverable, but it's not going to be the same as you really showing them what happened behind the scenes and all of the value that you brought into the process. And that is relevant because it helps them understand where your decisions are coming from. It helps them see your thought leadership play out. It gives them context for why you did things the way that you did things. So don't feel like you have to hide and shrink yourself and not step into the spotlight and keep it really tight and really, quick when it comes to explaining deliverables. You actually want to slow down and you want to spend some time talking about what went into it, selling the effort you put into it, selling the skills that went into it, selling the creativity that went into it. That is going to increase their perceived value of the end deliverable. And this is something that I love teaching. It's something that comes up a lot in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. But we talk about this idea of selling because when we share information with our audience, yes, we can just share the deliverable, but if we don't sell them on why the deliverable is awesome and all of the incredible things that went into it, they're not going to be as impressed by it. Just like, if you're, let's say, shopping for a new car and you look at this car and you think, oh, this car is really pretty. If a salesperson comes up to you and says, let me tell you more about the features and the design innovation, and they start talking about these proprietary technologies, you're going to start to see the car in a different light because you're seeing what's unique about it. You're seeing what's valuable. You're seeing what's special about it. So selling, it's not just a thing that car salespeople do. Selling is something that's always happening. Selling is showing our audience our perspective. It's compelling our audience to be interested and excited. And it's something that we have to learn to do in a corporate setting if we want to achieve big impact and if we want to be seen as leaders. And one of the ways that we sell our work is by selling the incredible steps that we had to take to make it happen. When we do this and when you do this, your reputation as a leader and your authority and your credibility will go up. So to summarize everything I shared in this episode, there are really two ways you can share communication. And when you're communicating with executives, I recommend you take the second approach. The first way is what I call the individual contributor way. This is as if you are giving someone a synopsis of a play. You're just sharing the information. The second way is more of the experiential, emotionally engaging way. This is where you are not just sharing the information, but you're sharing it in a way that is emotionally engaging to your audience, that makes them feel excited, that makes them feel compelled, that makes them want to rave about it, that makes them see the end deliverable as being more valuable. And as you do this, executives are going to be more interested in your work because they see how it benefits them. And they're also going to be more impressed by you and your execution. And both of these things require courage and they require you to take up space because what you're essentially doing at a deeper level and what you're really communicating when you're adjusting your communication in these ways is you're communicating your own talent, right? What you're really saying is this work is good and here's why. And a lot of what you're adding to your talking points, the underlying message is this is why my work is good. This is why my work is good. And that feels scary. However, one of the most incredible things that I have learned through my own journey, as well as supporting my clients in their professional journeys, is that just because something is scary, it doesn't mean we're not capable of doing it. And the really cool thing is the more we challenge ourselves to get uncomfortable and do the scary things and talk about why we and our work is incredible, the more that we challenge ourselves to do those things, the stronger we get, the more we're able to navigate the scariness, and it can start to feel way more manageable over time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I had so much fun recording this. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you gleaned some tactical takeaways that you can apply. And if you are realizing that you are ready to go deeper in developing these skills and you want to get really good at framing your communication for executives and building the confidence you need to stand behind your work and talk about it like you know it's good, I want to invite you to join me in the Art of Speaking Up Academy, where I'm going to help you do those things. Enrollment opens March 13th. And if you want to get more of a taste of my work and more of a taste of the Art of Speaking Up Academy, my free training, 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence, will offer you both. In there, I walk you through the 3 components that I recommend you focus on in order to develop a powerful, confident, articulate verbal communication style, even if you're a total beginner. You can grab that by clicking the link in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. I have been feeling the love from all of you. So I really just appreciate you listening to the show, sharing the show, rating the show. It means the world to me. So thank you. And I will catch you in next week's episode. Bye.